Nate Ament is the number 4 prospect on my preseason big board, and with the college season about to start, I'm joined once again by Abdel from Taco Takes. Abdel, the reason why I'm so high on Nate Ament early on is because this surprised me a little bit actually when I was getting into his tape, but I really think that he's a dribble, pass, shoot sort of prospect. I'm wondering, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think shooting for sure stood out. Um, and then I was surprised at his dribbling and passing, how they panned out. Let's for the handle. I think it's I think it's flawed, but with high potential, because I've seen areas where like high end ball pressure can really bother him, but I've also seen multiple strings of dribble moves where he just shakes guys, or like dribbles, like crosses one way hard and then spins out the other way, or a quick in and out. That makes me think, oh, like, okay, he has more than one of these like standards, like standard 3 and D or like forward type wings, right? That are more stationary. So I think, yeah, and then his passing also is nothing like flashy, kind of similar to Cameron Boozer, where he just makes the right play and like each time, and he's always aware of where the help is coming. So that type of category, yes, I would agree. I think that's kind of the sell for him with his size, right? So yeah, I would agree.
The handle is interesting because I can, see an outcome where it's limited to attacking closeouts or pretty much straight line drives. But there are also enough flashes up to this point, I think, where
Yeah.
you'll see him running a pick and roll pretty effectively. You'll see him getting a deep paint touch, and then, like you said, he's got pretty good awareness. He understands where the defense is coming from, and not just that, but I think that as he's gotten, much better as a scorer as well, what he's really gotten better at understanding is the leverage that he creates just by having the ball in his hands. The
Hmm.
opposing defense is, almost always, at least, at this level, at the high school level, going to be paying attention to him. And so, what I thought that he was really smart at doing was recognizing where his teammates were at. I thought that his team played with, pretty good spacing throughout the games that I watched, which I thought, brought out the best in his passing as well. But the process and the reads, more so than the actual handle or maybe even the deliveries, because that could be a little inconsistent as well at times, but just more so the process that I saw Ament take and the ways that I was kind of seeing his ideas play out on the court. I think that's what
Yeah.
made me really high on him and much higher than I expected.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I think his handle is um the only thing he's really missing is obviously like tightening it up a bit. Like being that big, your handle's always going to be high, right? So it's so susceptible to like lower guards coming in. But he he right now he doesn't have high end explosion to explode out of his moves, right? So he kind of has to be a bit more deceptive. So when he does create space, it could be plugged in pretty quick. If he's facing like a higher physical end defender, he can't really explode out of his moves too much. But he really has good counters, like especially like off the dribble or even just like one dribble. He got a lot of guys on like just spinning off of them, and the fact that he's long, he covers a lot of ground and just finds himself at the rim a lot, right? So yeah, I think I was I didn't know what to expect. I just knew he was tall, and he could shoot, right? And the shooting stood out immediately. Like linking the handle to the shooting, he can really get into a shot. It's a high release from his handle smoothly. Um, but yeah, they're like, it was funny because the first few clips I watched, it was like him getting stripped. And I was like, oh, I wrote in my notes. I was like, oh, limited handle question mark. And then the more clips I watched, I was like, oh, I found plays. I was like, okay. So I think it'll be a thing where he might not be a primary ball handler or even like maybe secondary, but he has more tools. And let's say, I think a guy people might compare him to is like Risashir from last year, a couple of years ago. Like if you compare the handles between the two at the same stage, like Ament is way more advanced and more comfortable, right? And what that handle does is like multiple phases, like whether he's running pick and roll or even catching, attacking a closeout, like being comfortable to like handle people digging down, just continue my handle and stuff like that. It's like a multiplier in multiple phases for him, right? So it doesn't have to be like an elite handle, but it's definitely better than I thought it would be. And I think it really kind of boosted my stock in him, right? When I started to see that. So
The touch indicators are really good. I mean, just kind of
yeah,
looking at some of his numbers here, 60 game sample size, but from three, I have him at 38.5% from deep on 369 shots. And then from the free throw line as well, 83% on 410 foul shots. All of that comes with a 59.8 true shooting percentage. So, I mean, sure, he does have areas that he has to keep developing in as a scorer. I think that strength is the biggest one, as we'll get into. But
yeah.
even right now, like, I feel pretty safe and pretty comfortable with where his profile overall is at.
Yeah, I think safe is a good word. Like a lot of his skills make sense with each other, and they don't have like really a worry of like, oh wow, like either a high chance or a decent chance this might not work out, or like if this doesn't work out, then he's in trouble, right? I think like the moment he steps into the league, like he'll be able to contribute offensively just by shooting and ability to attack closeouts, right? And then make solid decisions, right? At that size, already that's like a really great sell, right? For a prospect. If you have those working in your favor, you're already starting from like a really good point. Versus other prospects, you might have to like really squint hard to be like, okay, this might be valuable in this context. Like, I meant to like, no, like it's very stark and clear, right? His value. So that's, yeah, his touch indicators. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Like you can see how soft his touch is when he plays, right? So yeah, I guess it's kind of going into like he's probably my number 4 prospect as well, outside the top 3. But the main thing is if he wants to reach higher ends of like offensive creation, the physical development is really, and finishing at the rim is really what's going to take him to the next level, right? Also, he's always going to be limited explosively, but the times he finds himself at the rim, he has to finish, and he needs to develop physically to get better at that, right? So
Yeah. You mentioned Zachary Rizache earlier, and I think that he's a good comparison for sure. I also think Jabari Smith or even Matas Buzelis are sort of, I would say adjacent fours to the type of player that Ament could potentially become. I think that when you look at his handle, when you look at the shooting, when you look at the passing, like you're saying, all of those skills really stack on top of each other really
yeah,
well. Now,
exactly, yeah,
what I want to see is the strength. I think that's a big question mark for me. I love his toughness, but it's just the strength that can be a limitation when it comes to getting to his spots, when it comes to finishing at the rim, even when it comes to rebounding and defending as well. And then another area that I want to see a little bit more of, and I wouldn't even call it exactly improvement. I would just say that I want to see just, a bigger sample size of is I want to see more of a Ment defending NBA caliber wings in terms of body type. I thought that in high school, a lot of the time, he was the biggest, player on his team. So he was on fives a lot of the time or kind of just roaming around, saving his energy. But I do
yeah,
kind of think now that once he's in college and once he's in the NBA, he might have to define his defensive role a little bit better.
yeah. Like defensively, because some of the names you mentioned, because and especially at his size, I was looking to see um, if he's a more of a play up type of forward wing, or like if he's more of like a truer perimeter wing, right? I think he's more of the latter because his instincts protecting the rim aren't really there naturally. It might have been high school, but there's so multiple occasions where like he was in the low man position and he just like rotated really late, or even he got there and he just kind of gave a half-hearted effort. Like, I don't think he'll be a guy you can count on to protect the rim. Um, and that kind of shifts into, I think his defensive cell is more versatility and the way he can move his feet on the perimeter. Like, he switched out into guards really well from the tape I had access to. But like you said, a 6'8" able-bodied small forward, can he like handle them one-on-one, right? And that'll go into strength. I think mostly that's the way to take advantage of him, because I think him moving his feet, he's pretty solid there. But most of the time, like, I've been trending towards this. Like, if you're like 6'8", 6'9" ish, and you don't provide a ton of rim protection or, let's say, defensive playmaking, then it kind of caps your ceiling a bit as a defender, because although mirroring guys and staying on the perimeter is valuable, like, you already have guys most likely on your team who can do that, right? The things that a lot of people can't do is save defensive possessions, right? And he might, like, as long as he's just solid, like, he doesn't need to, like, if he was elite defensively like that, and with his offensive profile, then you're talking about like another level of prospect, right? So this is kind of why he's in the range he's in. But that's what I kind of think. I think he can move his feet well against guards. Bigger guys on the perimeter might take advantage of him physically. And is there any growth or potential for him as a helper at the rim? That's also what I'm watching at Tennessee.
With a few of these other guys that we just touched on, I mean, Riza Sher, Buzelis as well, even a guy like Jabari Smith, I think at different points of their respective kind of like draft cycles, they were mentioned in that number one pick conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think we're going to be seeing anything like that with Nate Ament, just because of the three guys, the big three that's in front of him.
Yeah.
But I will ask this, though. Do you think that there's any chance at all that he can crack into that top three? Or do you think it's likelier that he falls out of the top 10? Because I think that, even though the first looks pretty unlikely, the second, to me, also looks extremely unlikely just based on where the NBA is going. So is he pretty much a top 5 lock? And do you see him potentially, moving into that very top tier at all?
Yeah, I think, because when I was looking at him comparing, I'm like Jabari Smith is a good one. Also, I don't think he's as explosive as him, but maybe on the higher end of his offensive outcome, someone like Lauri Markkanen, if he like really like an off-ball wing, catching the ball, finishing, and like handling a bit. But going back to your question, the top three is going to be tough for me personally. It's Darryn or Boozer, number one, Cam Boozer. AJ is really the target if Ament's thinking to sneak in, right? If he goes to BYU and slides. But the problem with AJ is, even if he has like an inefficient season, like, it takes a lot for someone with his physical profile and tools to completely like lose their position. Like, think about Cam Reddish, right? A few years ago, like, horrible at Duke, but it didn't matter because like you talk yourself into some guys with those tools, right? So, but I don't think he can fall out of top 10. So it's tough. I think maybe there's a way he sneaks over AJ. Some GM is like, I need a safe, high floor impact defender. Maybe he thinks his ceiling's underrated, right? Then takes him 3. But like, I think 4, 5, 6, that's the range I really have Ament in. Like, he can fall to like 7, 8, but the top 10 is like very, very tough for me to envision unless he has like a really bad season. So like, his floor is his range of outcomes very minimal. But if he were to break in the top 10, it would be AJ. I think he would kind of move there, and that would be the discussion. The other two guys, I just don't think there's a chance.
Abdel, really appreciate your time, man, talking me through a bunch of prospects, a bunch of questions as well. If there's anything else that you think we haven't covered about Nate Ament, anything else that you think is important for people to know?
We talked about the strength, but I think what gets underrated also sometimes, which might hurt him and hurt guys like Jabari Smith, because Jabari Smith was like even though his shooting didn't be as elite as it was at Auburn, but the sell was like, oh, you gotta guard him immediately. He'll stretch the floor. But in situations where you're attacking closeouts, you need explosion right off your back foot to really be effective in there, like consistently. I think Ament is better than Jabari, but I think that's like one of the primary reasons Jabari's struggled a bit offensively than people envision. Like if you're rotating towards him and you do like a hard closeout, whatever, if he pump fakes and drives, he's not gonna explode by you. There's room to recover, right? And the rest of the defense. Whereas if you have a guy in a situation who pump fakes and just explodes, then it's a bit harder for the defense to react. So I think the physical development is strength, but also the explosion bursts, but that's harder to develop. So that could be like kind of a harder capper on his ceiling. That's the only other thing I had for Ament. So
Abdel, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, once again, Taco Takes on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to support the channel. It's some great content coming out there. Abdel, once again, let my people know where they can find you.
Yeah, like you said, Wilco, Taco Takes on YouTube, Twitter, Abdel_Taco. Yeah, so check me out there. We were dropping videos weekly. I'm trying to do a poll before every video so people can vote on the prospects. So the next video is on Tunde Yesofu. So if you guys are interested, check that out. That'll be out soon. But yeah, no, appreciate you having me on, man. This is a blast.